There is almost nothing left.
What will we do when the grain is gone?
We will go to Moab until the famine passes.
Will we ever return?
How far is Moab? Far enough that we must trust the Lord to guide us.
Stay close to one another. The stars are bright tonight.
Rest now, for tomorrow we walk again. I remember when we were young, the stars seemed so much closer. And every single night, the desert felt like it was singing us to sleep. After they settled in Moab, tragedy came to Naomi's family. Elimelech, her husband, was no longer with her, and Naomi remained with her 2 sons.
Years passed, and Ruth and Orpah became part of Naomi's family. For about 10 years they lived together in Moab. But sorrow came again, and Naomi was left with the 2 women who had become like daughters to her.
Then, in the midst of her sorrow, Judah has food again!
The Lord has provided for his people. Then perhaps it is time to go home. Hearing that the famine had ended, Naomi decided to return to Judah. Ruth and Orpah went with her, leaving Moab behind as they began the long journey home. As they traveled, Naomi began to think about the difficult future waiting for her. She stopped on the road and looked at the 2 women who had faithfully followed her. Naomi urged her daughters-in-law to return to their families. She blessed them for the kindness they had shown her and wished them peaceful new lives. After a painful farewell, Orpah turned back toward Moab. Ruth remained beside Naomi, unwilling to leave the woman she had come to love as a mother. Ruth chose Naomi's people as her own and placed her future in the hands of Naomi's God. From that moment, nothing would separate the 2 women. Together they continued toward Judah. Day after day they traveled, leaving behind the land Ruth had always known and moving toward a completely new life.
At last, the hills of Bethlehem appeared before them. After many years away, Naomi was finally returning to the land of her family.
When Naomi entered Bethlehem, the people recognized her. But the woman who had left years before had returned carrying deep sorrow and memories of everything she had lost. When Naomi returned to Bethlehem after many years away, they could see that sorrow had deeply changed her. Naomi felt that her life had been filled with bitterness. She believed she had left Bethlehem with a family, but returned with almost everything she loved taken away.
But Naomi had not returned alone. Ruth had remained beside her, leaving behind her homeland, her family, and everything familiar to follow Naomi into an uncertain future.
The two women now had to begin again. They had little with them, but they had each other, and their journey in Bethlehem was only beginning.
It was the beginning of the barley harvest in Bethlehem. The fields were full of activity, and Ruth would soon discover an opportunity that would change both their lives.
With little food in their home, Ruth went into the fields to gather the grain left behind by the harvesters.
Ruth did not know it yet, but the field she had entered would lead her towards someone whose kindness would change the course of her life. With little food in their home, Ruth went into the fields to gather what the harvesters left behind. She did not know that this humble step would lead her toward a new future. The field belonged to Boaz, a respected man from the family of Elimelech. When he noticed Ruth among the workers, he became curious about the young woman who had come from Moab. Boaz learned of Ruth's loyalty to Naomi and the sacrifice she had made to remain with her. Treat her kindly. Moved by her faithfulness, he made sure she would be safe and allowed her to
gather generously among his fields. At the end of the day, Ruth returned with far more grain than Naomi expected. When Naomi realized that Ruth had found favor in the field of Boaz, a close relative of their family, she began to see that their return to Bethlehem had not been an accident.
Day after day, Ruth continued gathering grain in the fields of Boaz. Through her humility, she slowly became known to the man whose field she had entered.
Naomi now saw a path towards security for Ruth. She knew Boaz was a close relative and believed that he might become their family's redeemer.
Following Naomi's guidance, Ruth approached Boaz with humility and placed her future in his hands. Boaz recognized her courage and understood the trust she had placed in him. Boaz promised to do what was right. But there was another relative who stood closer in the family line, and Boaz would first have to settle the matter according to the law. The nearer relative gave up his right, and Boaz became the family redeemer. Ruth became his wife, and the Lord blessed them with a son. The story that began with famine, loss, and sorrow had become a story of faith, love, and redemption. Ruth, the woman who left everything behind to follow Naomi, and through this family, God was preparing a greater story, one that would lead to King David, and generations later, to Jesus Christ.